Hey guys, Jeff Francoeur here. Thanks for listening to our content, and please like and subscribe. Hey guys, welcome to the show. I'm telling you, you're going to have to stick with this one today. It was incredible. Matt Ryan gave so much good stuff from the Super Bowl. We talked about his NFL career and some of the stuff that made him just the quarterback that he was. And then, of course, I love it. He spent the last 25 minutes talking about youth sports, his experience coaching his kids. So many good nuggets that you're not going to want to miss. So enjoy this one. Before we get to the podcast, if you have middle school or high school kids that play sports and you don't want to fundraise like me, we got you covered. My buddy Chris Carneal owns Booster. Chris?
We help schools and sports teams raise funds in a super fun and engaging way. In fact, the last 22 years, we've raised $750 million, and we can't wait to help you. Choose booster.com.
Welcome back to Pure Athlete. I'm Jeff with Britt and Brad. Excited about today's guest. Met him as a rookie when he came into the NFL league, came into the locker room with the Braves. Early on, took a lot of money from him on the golf course, guys, but he has gotten good now. And just a great, obviously a great quarterback. Matt Ryan for the Falcons, but even a better guy. Matt, thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to chatting with you guys. Thanks for having me on. And Jeff's not kidding. He beat up on me pretty good, about 2008 to about 2014, those years. My game's gotten a little bit better. So when the weather breaks here in Atlanta, hopefully I can get back into Jeff's pockets a little bit.
Jeff's getting a little older too.
I am. I'm 40 now, man. I get to move up a set of tees.
It is amazing how fast 40 comes, because I feel like we were all just young athletes in Atlanta, right? Like kind of cracking into the scene, and no responsibilities other than going out there and playing. And it's amazing how life changes quickly.
Yeah, now we're all doing TV and talking about the game.
It's amazing how fast 40 goes, too.
Yeah,
try 50.
Yeah, exactly.
There we go.
So before we get going, I know you were just at the Super Bowl. Forget the game for a minute. Talk about flying with the Thunderbirds. What was that like?
Honestly, it was one of the coolest things I've ever done. I got there. I had like 6 hours of training before I went in, and took the flight. And the training had me scared out of my mind, because we were talking about what happens if we have to eject from the plane, and if you're coming down with the parachute or whatever. And I got the fireworks going behind me. I don't know what happened here on my iPhone, but so anyhow, I was doing all of this training beforehand, and I'm nervous. And finally the pilot comes in and he's like, "Listen, man, none of that's going to happen." He's like, it's all kind of, we just have to do it. But we got in there, and my pilot, Taylor White, was awesome, right? He was really cool in that, at the beginning, he was like, "Hey, I'm not going to try and bury you. I know you've heard these horror stories that we're going to make you puke or we're going to make you pass out." He's like, my goal today is to make sure you have fun, and we'll kind of start off slow and you tell me how you're feeling. And so we kind of went up and took off and flew from Vegas to California, and we got there in 10 minutes. But there's this unrestricted airspace over in California. And so we were cruising the whole way. And then we got into this unrestricted airspace, and I mean, he hit the throttle and we were rolling. And so he kind of eased me into it. We did some of the barrel rolls, kind of did some of the turns, and then he started to turn it on. And I didn't know how I was going to feel, but I was in the whole G suit and everything. And we got going, and I felt all right. So I was like, okay, give me the full experience, man. And he did, and it was awesome. I've got they put together a really cool, 2-3 minute thing, but I got the 55 full minutes of the GoPro that I've got to go. Yeah, I've got to check out at some point this week and just see kind of how crazy it was. But it was a really cool experience. I had a blast.
You never felt like you were going to throw up at all?
I didn't feel nauseous at all. At one point, he was pulling 9 Gs going around this turn, and we probably held it for, 10 seconds. And when we were doing that, my vision, I thought I was getting close to passing out. Had we kept in it for a long time, I probably would have passed out. but you kind of get that like tunnel vision. It was getting close for me towards the end, so I was thankful when he pulled out of it and I didn't pass out. It was awesome though.
Oh,
That's cool. That's cool. So Matt, we're just a few days past the Super Bowl. So I want to talk a little bit about the Super Bowl. You've been there as a player, you've been there now as a broadcaster. Take us behind the scenes a little bit from both perspectives. How was it different? Most fans never get there. What was it like experiencing both ways?
Yeah, the experience as a player, you're so protected, right, by the organization. And so everything's on schedule. You have this allotment for the time you've got to spend with the media, but you're police escorted to it, right? And you hop off the bus and you go down and you give this, and then somebody's wheeling you out of there, dragging you back to the bus. And the experience as a player was awesome. And something I'll always remember, the lead up. The game obviously was disappointing, with the result, the last quarter basically. But, and then going to see it as a broadcaster from the other lens, right, where you get to really feel the environment. Like you're out and about more than you are as a player, and you see, just how big the impact is on the city, how fired up people are. Our sets were all down where people could get to it, so you feel the energy kind of building up through the week. It was amazing. And then there's nothing like it being down on the field, as a player or a broadcaster. As a player, it's incredible because your mindset, you're taking it all in, but your mindset is locking back in and trying to focus on what you're doing. But as a broadcaster, you're sitting there, you're watching the players and they come out and you can take it all in. You don't have to go play. You can just kind of embrace the moment. And so it was really cool to see. There's really no environment like it. And just the energy is different. It's not necessarily louder. Like I would say the championship games, in the home stadiums are probably a louder, more like rabid environment. But the energy and like the amount of people that you see, the celebrities, the people from across sports, it's amazing to have all of these people in one setting. It was a blast to see it from the other perspective as a broadcaster.
Well, that's cool. You had some really, really good segments. I mean, that segment where you all walked, through the stadium and out on the field, that's hard to do. And you guys did it flawlessly.
Well, you're nice to say it. I was lucky. So I was with Jason McCourty, and Britt, you can speak to this as a dad of twins, right? Like, so Jason's a twin, and he's telling me this story like 3 days before we're on the set of, walking out of the stadium. They had these T-shirts that they had for their mom, and he's playing with his brother Devin. And I'm like, dude, we need to talk about this during the walk and talk. Like, I've got this thing where I've got these two twin boys, and I'm sitting there thinking, if they were ever to do this, what would my wife be thinking in this situation? What would they be thinking and you can tell this, you can kind of share this experience. So it was really cool to kind of have, his story to be able to tell. And then also, take it through like to the viewer, what you're thinking at each step along the way, right? And what your routine was. Jeff, I know you can speak to this. You probably had the same routine all the time of coming out of the dugout. And for me, it was always, finding where my family was, kind of checking in with them, making sure everybody was settled. For me, it was like the quick thumbs up. And as soon as I would get the thumbs up back from them, I was good, right? And I could lock in and focus on what I was doing. And so I think anytime you get to do those things as a broadcaster and kind of share the personal experience, like what you're actually going through in those situations, I usually find that stuff relates well to the fans and the viewers.
Speaking real quick, funny story is one of the first times I met Matt, he came to hang out throughout the first pitch in a Braves game, and the game was at 7:20, and it was like 7:07. And he's in there hanging with us in the locker room. And he's like, do y'all not have to get ready for the game? Like 13 minutes. And I think the best part was Chipper was talking to him all about it. He was in his sliding shorts still, like 12 minutes for the game. And I'm like, we'll walk out at about 7:18. He's like, Jeez, man. He's like, what a difference.
Yeah, it was so different. Well, I mean, you guys got to play, 160 plus, right? And so the level of intensity, I look at baseball players and I think their ability to lock in for the specific moments, and when it's there, that is so impressive to me to be able to do it night after night. But when you're in football, you played it, Jeff, even in high school, like the buildup is different. There's nothing like it in sports. The buildup and like the anxiety level that you feel in the locker room.
You're not going to have some
crazy.
guy hanging out 12 minutes before you go out.
No, everybody is dialed in. Everybody's dialed in.
So Matt, you looking at Mahomes and Purdy in the Super Bowl, and they're both just so completely different types of quarterbacks. Two great different talents, different stories. If you were a GM, it's so hard to identify who's going to make it, who's not going to make it. But if you were a GM, like what were the three main things you'd look at if you were drafting a QB that you would say, hey, this gives us the best chance of success?
I think, the first, number one, it's whatever skill set you're looking for, right? You have to have the physical ability to be able to do it. So you got to be able to make all the throws. In the current NFL, you got to be able to move, right? There's a level of athleticism that you have to have. So to me, that's like number one, right? What are the tangibles? Number two and three. Number two to me would be, how important is this to him, right? Like, is this the center of your world outside of maybe your family, faith, whatever that is, right? Like, is this the most important thing to you? Because you'd be surprised. At least I was. You'd be surprised when you get into NFL locker rooms. I thought it was going to be the most important thing to them, and it wasn't. And I was always like, whoa, that's kind of crazy. And so I think if you're finding the quarterback, they need to be that gym rat, right? That kind of eats, sleeps, that they never put it away. And then the third thing I would look for is no stage fright, right? Like I don't want a person that is scared of whether it's the moment or making a decision or, leading, being uncomfortable, having to say things that they need to say. I think that's a really important thing, at that quarterback position, to be that decision maker and not for it to be a struggle. You're not grinding through that. You really are just comfortable in those type of situations. And so, those would probably be the three things I would look at. The physical skill set. Then, number two is, are you invested totally in this? And then number three, the ability to make decisions and not be scared of the moment.
So one follow-up here, like the Moneyball question here, Matt, where would you have drafted Matt Ryan if you're looking at those three things, if you were a GM when you were coming out?
Good question, Brad. That's your best question ever.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, I was happy I got drafted third. So that was pretty good and ended up in Atlanta. But, if I was looking back on myself at that time, I think, in the current NFL, I'm probably not as mobile as you need to be. So there would be a slight, it was different. It was different in 2008, right? Like what you were asked to do. So I'm probably not quite as mobile as you would want right now. But accuracy, like all those things was really good. Arm strength was fine. So my physical thing would probably be like, if you're 10 out of 10, I was probably like an 8, missing on that, maybe the athleticism you need right now. I think I would have ranked really high in the other two though, right? Like football for me that was it. I was 22 years old when I got drafted, dating my wife now, but outside of that, that was the only thing that really mattered to me at that time. And then I think one of my skill sets always has been, to not be afraid of the moment, right? And not afraid to make decisions or lead guys or push guys or have to have uncomfortable conversations with teammates. I always thought those were things I excelled at. And so, yeah, I think I got drafted right about probably where I should have.
Well, Matt, all three of us are lifelong Atlanta guys. And so I would just say, you've had what's going to be a Hall of Fame career. I think being drafted third was a great pick for the Falcons, maybe the best pick they've ever made.
Yep.
Definitely. So,
yeah, my wallet's a little
I
heavier
appreciate
because of it too. So it's good.
Hey, It was good times back then. There was no rookie salary cap or anything like that. It was the wild, wild west for that contract market. So I lucked out.
Oh, gosh. Well, we're going to do, before we get to your youth sports journey, it kind of segues into what we're talking. So you were the third pick in 2008 out of Boston College. And I think what's so cool with your story, man, is a lot of guys, Bryce Young this year, come in, they struggle. I don't care how good of a team you have. When you come into the NFL and you got grown men on the other side, right, trying to take your head off, but you were able to go 11-5. You won Rookie of the Year. Like, so to me, what are a few of the qualities that you had? And you just talked about a few of them, but you got to be mentally tough to be able to come into this league and put up the success you did. What do you credit that to?
Well, I think it's a couple of things. My experience at Boston College, I think, really helped me, be prepared to come into the NFL. So I say that for a number of reasons. I redshirted my first year. I was a backup my second year. I lost the starting job in a battle in training camp, my third year, and got beat out. And then that quarterback, Quentin Porter, ended up getting hurt in my sophomore year, and I came in and I played pretty well. But then they put him in again, right, when he got healthy, and then we kind of had this back and forth. So I think that struggle, to get on the field, I think, kind of hardened my mindset. It made me probably a little more calloused, a little more mentally tough and like hungry. So I think that was like a struggle to get there in college, I think was really important in terms of my development. I think the system that I played in at BC was a very pro-style system, right? We did a lot of the same things in Atlanta early on in my career that we did at Boston College. We were under center a lot. We were changing protections in college. We were, calling multiple plays in, and I was having to, check at the line of scrimmage and get us into certain plays. And then, lastly, I think that I say this, and this isn't, I'm not taking a shot at my college teammates. Like, I love the guys that I played with, but Boston College isn't known for getting the best skill positions, like a Clemson, Jeff, or like, Florida State or Alabama or Georgia. We didn't have 5-star recruits at wideout. We had guys that, were really good players, but, might be running 4.8. Might be a 4.85 guy, might be a 4.7 guy.
Yeah, you didn't have Travis Etienne or T. Higgins.
No, we didn't have those guys. And so even in college, in order to be successful, we had to throw guys open. We had to maximize ball placement to move the sticks, and we had to do it day in and day out, whether it was in practice, whether it was in games or whatever. And I think having had that experience, and I remember my offensive coordinator, my first 4 years at BC, Dana Bible, telling me that when he left to go to NC State before my 5th year, he was like, I know it could have been easier in college, but the fact that you played with these guys and you had to throw into these tight window spaces and you had to work for it. I remember him telling me, he was like, these are all things that are going to help you have a 10-year career in the NFL. And I remember being like 21 and being like, 10 years in the NFL, like that would be insane. That would be crazy. And it was the first time anybody really said it to me. And then the next year happens, I get drafted, I get all those things. But I really think those kind of 3 things in college, the system, having to work for it, and then really, playing with guys that you had to throw open or you had to maximize ball placement, I think that helped when I got to the NFL because it was really similar.
Yeah, I read somewhere that those quarterbacks like Drew Brees and guys like that played at these not elite programs have a better chance at doing well in the NFL because they've had to carry their teams in a lot of ways and they've had to do things like that. So yeah, that played out pretty good with you, Matt.
Yeah. I mean, you look at Patrick Mahomes, right, at a Texas Tech or whatever. It's not, oftentimes it's not Aaron Rodgers, Cal Berkeley. Like, oftentimes it doesn't come from, the same places. I mean, there are guys, Matthew Stafford's a Georgia grad, and there are guys that do it, but it's not always, the guys you might think that end up translating well to the NFL.
So, Matt, a couple other NFL questions that I think translate well to even young athletes. when you're a quarterback in the NFL, things are going great. You get tons of accolades. When things aren't going great, you're under incredible scrutiny, a lot of negativity. So you seem to handle both of those situations with a lot of poise and grace, but there's a lot of adversity. How do you block out the noise? And today, kids have social media. How do they stay focused and focused on the job and block out some of that other stuff?
Yeah, I would say it was easier early in my career. You mentioned, social media and that stuff. Like, there was no Twitter or Instagram or any of those things when I first got into the NFL. And so, really, if you wanted to block it out, all you had to do was turn off your TV or not read the AJC, right? And then you didn't hear it. And that was easy. That's not the current climate. And as I got later into my career, I felt like I did a good job of listening to the opinions, whether it's good or bad, of the people that I trusted, and not getting out of whack by somebody that I didn't know, or somebody that wasn't in the building, or somebody that wasn't in the meetings. Not really. Just being able to kind of let those go, right? In one ear, out the other, and not letting it take up space in your head. But I always had a good support system around me, whether it was in the organization, whether it was my family. My wife was an athlete at Boston College, so she played basketball at BC, was a 3-year starter, 3-year captain up there. And she was such a good resource for me throughout my career because she understood what it took, right? Like to play at the highest of levels, the commitment that it takes. But she was really good about like picking me up when I needed a little pickup, or, putting the brakes on when maybe you need a little of the brakes on. And so like the support system I always thought was really helpful. And then, trying to not let people's opinions who weren't involved in the preparation or the behind the scenes seep into what you're thinking. It's not easy. I'm not saying I did it perfect all the time. But you really need to make a conscious effort of thinking about whose opinions you want to be listening to. And it's not always good, right? Like I think the criticism was helpful for me too, of like, you need to do this better. But I would say one of my strengths, throughout my career was always being able to honestly evaluate the good, what needed to be better, and not be emotionally attached to those things.
It's good stuff.
Matt, one last question before we go to youth sports, I promise. Our kids love hearing like kind of what a game day is like for pro athletes. Can you take us through what your typical game day on a Sunday was like, waking up until game time?
Yeah. So, I mean, I was very regimented, and pretty much the same way throughout my career. If we were playing a 1:00 game, I would probably get up somewhere between 7 and 7:30. And I always slept. It's odd. I always slept the best the night before the game. Like you'd have this whole week where you worked and you were grinding on all these things. And to me, you'd finish up that Saturday night meeting. And in a lot of ways, it was like a relief. Like I did all of this work. I checked all the boxes that I needed to check. And now I can go get the best rest of the week. And so I'd get up somewhere between 7 and 7:30. I would go down. We would have like a team breakfast or whatever. I'd go down there, a little before 8. I would have my breakfast, basically the same thing all the time. I would do like scrambled eggs, little oatmeal, banana chopped up in there, have a coffee, and then, start pushing hydration after that. I'd get over to the stadium, somewhere between 9:30 and 9:45. I like to get there a little bit earlier and kind of relax. I would have my game plan laid out. I would sit in the equipment room with our equipment guys. I would sit down in the equipment room every week. I would lay out my game plan. I'd make like a couple final notes, just a quick reminder on some checks or cans or protection stuff that I needed to do. Then I'd put that away, chop it up with the equipment guys for a little bit, just relax, go back in. I had kind of this stretching and mobility routine that I would do before I would put my uniform on. So I would do that. I would do my, mobility stuff. and then, go get my ankles taped, put my uniform on. And at 11:42, not a minute before, not a minute after, 11:42 was the time that I went out to warm up. I would do this about 20-minute throwing routine before the centers would come out. Then I'd get snaps with the centers. We'd be into kind of our, normal, pregame warm up with the team, finish that up. The worst time for me was always when we finished up warm ups and we went back into the locker room and we had, whatever it is, 15 or 18 minutes. Like that was the spot where your head would start to, race, right? You'd start to, think about different things. And so as I got later into my career, I started doing these breathing exercises during that time, so my mind wouldn't just wander to how things were going to shake out. So I would do these breathing exercises that were probably annoying, but I'd go sit behind the training room, do them, and then finish those up. We'd bring it up as a team, and then boom, out the tunnel and kicking off at 1:02. So that was pretty much every Sunday when we played a 1:00 game.
I'm just glad we didn't have to see you doing the Dax Prescott hip thrust. I don't know if I could have seen you doing that stuff out there.
I had good hip mobility, man.
Well, moving on now, I want to talk as a young boy growing up in Philadelphia. I know you played all the sports. You were one of those guys. What was one of your favorite youth sports memory growing up?
So, I played football, basketball, and baseball. I played it all the way through high school, which it was a different time where you could do that kind of stuff. But for me in football, I played for the Downingtown Young Whippets. I started in second grade, I think. And so I played 4 years before we lost our first game. We were a factory, right? Like the Whippets, you knew what you were going to get into. We were going to come in, we were going to wear you out. But I didn't play quarterback until seventh grade. So, my first 4 years I was playing like tight end, defensive end. I played fullback a couple of years. So I played all these different things. But my memory is that we didn't lose a game for 4 years. So that was pretty good. And then, but honestly, basketball was by far my favorite sport growing up, and probably what I was the best at, as a kid, and really, loved playing basketball. Phoenixville YMCA. I used to wear that league out. It was fun, playing with them. And then, as soon as that finished up, it was baseball in the spring. So I used to look forward to kind of getting to another season, right? By the end of it, I'd be like, all right, I'm done with this. I can't wait to start basketball or start baseball. But, it was just the fun parts of it, right? Like showing up, and whether it's baseball, I mean, everybody, loves the concession stands. My kids love it now, but getting the fun dip after a game and loading up on the sugar, like there was nothing, there was nothing better when you were a kid than that kind of stuff.
When I was a kid, it was so long ago, we used to get Cokes after the game. They would give you Coca-Colas after the game. That was the big treat, That's not done anymore.
That's not healthy anymore.
No, I don't think they do that anymore.
No.
My favorite thing, too, was after football practice, when my dad would pick us up to go back home, we would always stop at Wawa, right? So Wawas are like, they're massive in Pennsylvania. But stopping at Wawa and getting the glass bottle Gatorade, and popping, when you would pop the top of the glass bottle, I mean, there was no better feeling in life than getting that Gatorade after a practice.
So Matt, you played all sports all the way through high school. Tell us a little bit about, when did football emerge as being your number one, or was it really late in high school that happened?
Yeah, it probably wasn't until after my sophomore year of high school, that I it clicked for me. We ran the triple option at my high school, so I only threw the ball like 10 times a game, and all of a sudden I somehow started to get all of these letters from different schools, and I had no idea why. Right, like I was okay, but I wasn't that good, and I started to get a bunch of letters, and I was getting some for basketball and baseball, but they were at a different level, right? Like they were just kind of a different, caliber of sports. And so, it was really after that time that I was like, oh man, I think I have a chance to maybe get a scholarship to go to college if I kind of go in this football route. And so that was probably the time I focused a little bit more on football. But it's crazy. Like, even when I was in high school, we didn't have all of the 7-on-7 leagues and stuff like that. So, like, I would say I focused more on football, but I didn't really do anything different, you know? Like, I still played summer basketball, I played summer baseball, and like I threw a little bit, during the summer. And so that was probably it. Also, that year at my high school, our offensive coordinator changed, and my coach became a guy, Mike Samuel. And so Mike was a quarterback at Wisconsin who went to my high school. He played at Wisconsin when they won the Rose Bowl with Ron Dane, and he came back to Penn Charter and became our offensive coordinator. And that was really, it was one of the best things that ever happened in my life, because he started to take me under his wing and talk to me about, what it's going to be like at the college level, how I should be training. He would put me through the workouts during the summer, and I had like a better structure to what I was doing. And so it wasn't really until, that summer before my junior year that I really even started to do like that kind of training. But I was really, really lucky to be able to do it with him as a guy that had done it at a high level in college.
Did they change the offense up for you at all, or are you still just getting smoked?
Yeah, we threw it a little bit more when Mike came in, but we still, our head coach Brian McCluskey he was a believer in the option, man. So we still ran the option my junior and senior year quite a bit, but we threw it. Our passing game became a little bit more sophisticated. We went from maybe throwing 10 passes a game to like 16 or 18, something like that.
Quick question, just for people, what was your size like? Were you always tall? I know you've been skinny a long time, but
yeah, I was never big, but I shot up from my freshman year. I was probably 5'10", 5'10", 5'11", and then to my sophomore year, I grew like 5 inches. So I had this weird year of, from like 14 to 15, where I grew 5 inches, and I went from, a little under 6 foot to 6'4", basically in like 6 months. And I was like a baby giraffe running around, that sophomore year, whether it was football or basketball. I'll never forget my dad being like, after a basketball game, he's like, dude, you have to stay on your feet. He's like, you can't keep falling while you're out there. And I'm like, I'm trying, man. Like, I don't know what to tell you. I don't feel like I'm going to fall, but I just end up, center of gravity was off. So I hit this massive growth spurt between my freshman and sophomore year of high school. But I was probably, my sophomore year of high school, I was probably 6'4", 160 pounds, just a string bean. And, I left high school, I probably only weighed 180, 185 pounds, leaving high school to go to Boston College.
Wow. Real quick, I heard you talk about your dad real quick. And of course, I know you're a father now of the twins, man, and they're starting to get into sports. But what was your dynamic like? We talk a lot these days about these parents being hard on the kids, and not hard in a bad way, but just pressing them, do more. What was that relationship like for you with your mom and dad?
Yeah, it was good. My parents, my dad coached us in baseball until I was probably 12 years old, but that was the only sport he coached for me. But my dad was hands off. He honestly was. It was like, he was more of like a music guy, and like he was kind of like a hippie or whatever, growing up. So he was into the guitar. He taught me how to play guitar, and I've known how to play the guitar longer than I knew how to throw a ball, right? Like I was young, kind of doing that stuff with him, but he didn't play a lot of team sports. And he was always like, I want you guys to be involved in a team sport setting, whatever it is, just because I think it'll be good for you, in terms of development, learning how to work with other people, kind of listening and all of those things. So they were kind of hands off when we were young, just go have fun and like play. They didn't really like kill us on whether you performed well or didn't perform well. They wanted to make sure you were having fun and showing up, right? Like the discipline of showing up as a kid for practice and being on time, like that was the stuff that they were into and they found important. And then when I got to high school, my parents they weren't like hard on me, but they never let me get my head too big, right? Like my mom was always the one telling me I wasn't that good, like you did fine, but you weren't that good, you could have done this better, those kind of things. So she was always like that. But I remember being in college, and then my dad was around football for a while, whether it was high school and then watching in college. And I remember in college, my dad one time. And I love my dad, but he doesn't, he doesn't know the X's and O's, right? Like he doesn't know that stuff. And I remember him talking to me one time in college after a game about play calling or something. And I'm like, Dad, like, what are you talking about? And I remember telling him, I was like, hey, I think I'm going to be doing this for a while moving forward. Uh, and I don't need that from you. Like, I don't need you talking about play calling or anything like that. What I need is just support, like be there for the hug after the game or whatever. And to his credit, I never heard about it again from college all the way through the NFL. And my dad went to almost every game I ever played in the NFL until COVID happened. He was there week in and week out, and he'd be standing right outside the locker room afterwards. And he's kind of old school, not a man of like emotion or very few words, right? Like, and he would just say to me every time after the game, "You good? Like, is your body good? Your mind good? Are you good?" And as soon as I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm good," he'd be like, "All right, call your mother." That was it. That was kind of our deal. So my parents weren't heavy on the coaches or anything. Like they didn't push the coaches. They didn't get involved in that type of the way. My mom would always tell me, like, if you're good enough, you'll play. And it was basically that simple. And if you want to get better, work at it. And that was kind of how they were with me growing up.
Yeah, there's a lot of wisdom in that.
Yeah.
A lot of wisdom in that. So Matt, as you look back on your youth sports experience, what attribute of yours do you think contributed the most to you getting to the next level?
I think a couple of things. I think number one, I loved it, right? And I think that's what you see, at least me having kids now and watching it with other kids. It was never forced. It was never a chore to have to go to practice. Like that was what I lived for. It was like it was my favorite part of the day, right? Was getting done with school, making sure my homework was done so that you could go have these 2 hours where you could it was all I ever wanted to do, right? And so I think number one, like the genuine enthusiasm for doing it never got old. And I just absolutely loved it. And then honestly, like a wild, maybe unfounded sense of self-belief, like this, of course I can do this, whether I was right or wrong, I thought I could, and I think it's probably, those two things, like loving every minute of it. And then this deep down at my core, this belief that I could do it, whatever it was. I could play in high school. I can make the team as a freshman. I can make it as a sophomore. Of course, I could start as quarterback as a sophomore in high school. Like I just believed I could do those things, and that never really changed.
I talk a lot about my coaches growing up, even in Little League to high school, how influential they were on my life. And I look back and a lot of the way I coach my kids now is because of them. Who's one or two coaches for you? And I know you talk about your offense coordinator that were influential for you and why.
I think early on, I would say that there was in seventh grade, I switched to playing quarterback. and the coach was Dan Driscoll. And Dan, I mean, he really changed the course of my whole life, right? Like switching positions. And, basically during the summertime, I knew his son, DJ, who was a little bit older than me. And like just messing around during the summer throwing, he was like, I think you got to play quarterback next year. Like, what are we doing? You're not that good at tight end, but I think we could switch you and we could be okay. And I think back to him, in seventh grade, making that transition, kind of altering the course of my life. And now that you look back on it, he was extremely influential. And even at that time, like we were going no huddle in seventh grade, right? He was letting me call plays at the line of scrimmage. And I was this first time doing it, cocky little kid that he let go, and I look back on that and I'm like, wow, like that was this crazy experience I got in seventh grade, to number one, change positions, but also to really play the position, and screw up and make mistakes, but also do some things right and build that confidence and self-belief. He was incredibly influential for me. I think my high school coach, Brian McCluskey, the head coach, he was my math teacher 2 of the 4 years when I was in high school, and then he was also like my counselor or whatever. And so he was, I mean, he meant the world to me, and he was hard on me in a good way. Like not just in football, but just like, hey, you can do better than this in math. He's like, I feel like you're capable of more than this, and really pushed me to kind of maximize whatever potential it was I had in anything I did. He was always on me on those things, but supportive. I remember in high school, funny story about Brian McCluskey. So I was in high school, and I was a sophomore in high school. I was the starting quarterback for our team. And we were playing, I think it was St. Pius X, somewhere in like northern Pennsylvania. I don't know why we went this far to play this game, but we were playing this game, and we were up there on a Friday night. And for some reason, he wasn't on the sidelines. He was up in the booth. He was our head coach up in the booth, which this never happens. And so I'm down on the field, and we used to have this like check system, where we would get out of these plays or whatever. If a guy was uncovered, we'd, pull our jersey and throw it to him. Well, it was like 3rd and 15, and this one of our guys was uncovered, and I didn't check to it because the guy was off like 9 yards. I didn't think he would get the first down, right? And so I just stuck with the play we had, and I ended up taking a sack. And so I run to the sideline, and I forget what coach it was. I think it was Jeff Bass, our O-line coach, had the headset on. And I can hear Brian McCluskey yelling through the headset. He's like, "Get Matt on the headset. Get Matt on the headset." And I'm like, all right, like, and he's not doing it. He's not letting me get on there. And I'm like, well, tell him, whatever. I'm like yelling back. So I finally get on the headset, and he's like, "Hey, why didn't you throw the uncovered thing to ready go?" And I'm like, because it was 3rd and 15. I'm trying to win a game out here and get a first down. You're busy worrying about getting like 6 yards or something like that. He takes off the headset, runs down through the stands, like hops the fence, gets in my face, and is like, you're a sophomore. You don't talk back like that. You don't do any of these things, blah, 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 blah. So I get in the car, and I'm riding home with my dad. And my dad's like, "Hey, man, what happened there in the middle of the game when Brian ran down through the stands?" And I was like, I explained the whole situation. I was like, he was wrong. I was right, as only like a 14 or 15-year-old cocky kid would do. I'm like, he was wrong. He didn't know what he was talking about. I made a decision. I didn't worry about it. He was wrong. And my dad's like, we're driving to his house tomorrow morning. You're going to get out of the car. You're going to walk up to the door. You're going to knock on it. You're going to apologize for acting like a jerk. And you're never going to do that again. And I'm in a full sweat the next morning driving to this house. Like, I don't want to get out. I've just been, brought back down to earth by my dad or whatever. And I am so nervous walking up. And I like end up, going up to him. I apologize for being a jerk the night before. But he was so cool about it. And I remember him saying, he's like, "You know what? I appreciate you doing that. I appreciate you coming and being respectful. And he goes, but don't ever lose that. He was like, don't ever lose the belief that you're right out on the field, because the minute we strip you of that, the minute you're not going to be the same player. And so I remember this lesson on both sides, right? Like of, hey man, he is the guy in charge and you need to be respectful. And I probably was not. I was probably disrespectful as a 15-year-old kid. But at the same time, him then saying, yeah, I appreciate that, but don't lose it too. So it was kind of one of those moments for me, as a young kid. There was so much going on and so many things to process. But here I am 38 and I sit back and I'm like, I think that was one of the most, pivotal moments in my life of learning how to be that kind of leader that you want to be, having the conviction to stand up and make a decision, but also do it in a way that is respectful of the people that you're around.
Man, that story's awesome on so many levels. Because to be a quarterback, you have to be a leader. And we were talking before we got on the air about, you were kind of known for being this calm, cool, and collected guy, but sometimes there'd be some hot mic moments that we'd hear you jumping people, and that kind of tells us where that came from, which you do have to hold people accountable, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you ask any of my teammates, they would be like, "Oh man, he's got everybody fooled. He's got a lot of fire, inside of him." But my belief on that was always this, right? From a leadership standpoint, I was going to be hard on you during the week and be demanding with the guys during the week. But when it came to game day, the only time I would jump a teammate was mental mistakes. Like, to me, I thought physical mistakes were off limits, right? Because it's hard. Like, I know how difficult it is. There were times I would miss passes or, if you had a guy drop a ball or something. To me, that was the time for the arm around the shoulder and say, hey, man, you're good. You're going to make that play next time, whatever that may be. So with physical mistakes, I never got upset about those because, if you play sports, you're going to be imperfect. But with mental mistakes, to me, it was always we can control those, right? Like, these are the things that we work so hard on, and you can correct during the week and you can get right. We can't beat ourselves mentally. And that was probably the space where, I might have gotten on a guy during a game, but mostly for the most part, to me, game day was all about doing it together, and you didn't want to have anybody lose any confidence because it's so difficult to perform in those situations. So I was always pretty good on game day about, trying to champion teammates, but there were times where I was tough during the week.
Oh man, I'll tell you what, finishing up, man, you've given us a lot of time and we appreciate it. I know you're getting ready to take a much needed vacation after a long season of talking, but I want to finish up with a couple questions here. Now that you got twins, they're 6, I think, right?
My guys will be 6 in a couple of days. Yeah.
Ah, nice. Getting ready to turn 6. But as they start their own youth sports journey, I think 2 questions. What kind of coach do you want to be for them? And 2, what do you want for them as they go through their sports journey?
Number one, for them, I want them to enjoy it, to have fun with the experience. And, that's probably the biggest thing. Like, when I think about my kids, their personalities and their interests are different than my own. And I hate when you see people kind of push their own stuff onto their kids. Like, I'm just hopeful that they're passionate about something, whatever it may be, that they're passionate about something. And to me, that's what, whether it is sports, whether it's music, whatever it is, right, is to be passionate about, the things that they're interested in. And then from the coaching standpoint, I think back, like you said, Jeff, I think back to the people that were instrumental in my life, right? The people that I remember that made like a huge impact. And you want to be that for not only your kids, but the kids that you're helping coach. And so, our guys have been involved with T-ball the last couple of years, and I've helped out. This year it's the coach pitch, so I'm going to be the guy out there trying to basically place it on their bat.
Yeah. You gotta have a little steam. You gotta have a little steam behind it. Don't get too much of a
There's
loop.
no question.
Yeah, you gotta have some momentum.
It's one of the things I see around the league all too often. They throw these loopers.
Can't
like,
hit it,
how are you
man.
supposed to put your bat on it?
Yeah.
Right? Put a little pace on it. put it right on the bat. But I number one, I want to make sure the kids have fun. And to me, it often gets overlooked that for the majority of kids, even at 6 years old, you've got a window of 5 or 6 years that for some of these guys, that's their only experience playing sports. And, I want to be a coach that creates an environment where they look back on it as one of their best memories of being a kid. So I think keeping the perspective right, especially for the age group, that my guys are at, there's a time and a place, for it to get more intense and for it to become a little bit more competitive. I think development to me too at 6 years old is by far the most important thing. Let's get our hands on the bat the right way, right? Let's learn how to grip the baseball. Let's put ourselves in a position to give ourselves a chance to be successful, and then let's have fun doing it. To me, at this age, that's really what it's about.
We had Smoltzy on, and we've shown this clip a couple times, which I love. And he said, I wish coaches now would have the guts at a younger age to work on development over winning and give these kids an opportunity. And I love that because I think you're a perfect example of what you talked about, though, right? David Pollock said one time, it's all about, what you do on the other side of puberty. I mean, you grew 5 inches in 6 months.
100%.
And it's like, I mean, you wouldn't have been the same quarterback at 5'11" that you were at, 6'6". I mean,
I wouldn't be on the podcast with you guys right now if I was 5'11", right? Like I wouldn't be on here talking to you guys had I not grown that 5 inches. And there is something like everybody remembers it, right? There were kids on my team that were unbelievable players at 8, 9 years old that didn't play in high school, right? There's just kids develop at different rates. And you're right, really until puberty, you have no idea of what your size and strength is going to be like.
Yeah. My last question, Matt, before we let you go, is your advice to parents that are watching this, because majority of people that watch this are parents that have kids going through the grind, some younger, some older. And I think you've given a great kind of demonstration on where you were. And look, not every kid's going to be the next Matt Ryan. We talk about every kid's making it as far as they want. But what's your advice to parents to give their kids the best opportunity to, like you said, early on, have a lot of fun, develop, and if that time comes, to have a chance to play at the next level?
Yeah, I think number one, early on, right? It is foster the enthusiasm for it, make it fun, make it a positive experience that they want to go back to. I think that is critical because, if it's not, there's just not going to be interest in doing it. And I think my advice then when it changes, right, when you get to that point where maybe it's making your high school team or, later on than that, is there a chance or an opportunity to possibly play in college? It's to not burn the kids out, right? Like there's a really fine line and a tightrope that you have to walk between working hard at something and burning yourself out and not enjoying what you're doing. And so one of the things I would write on our board in the whiteboard of our quarterback meeting room at the beginning of like every year with all of our coaches was the acronym TSVR. And it stood for time spent, value received. And my advice to parents would be the same thing, right? Like, don't waste your time just working at something. Just putting in the time doesn't mean you're getting better. Like, set a limit on it, right? And when you're actually in there, identify the things that are going to help you get better and focus on those. It might not be sport specific. Like I often think I wish kids could play, multiple sports if they're into it, because I believe there's so much development for me as a quarterback that came from playing the middle infield, right? Being able to change arm angles, going down and not thinking about it, right? Being accurate with whatever ball it is from any arm position, and just like getting the ball in and out of your hands. As the RPOs and shotgun became more prevalent, that was something I never did as a kid, but was never a problem because I played middle infield my whole life. If you're turning 2, your hands are on that ball quickly, and you've got to get it in a good spot to be able to deliver a strike over to first base. that for me was a different sport, training me to play, the quarterback position. Basketball was like the best thing for my athleticism, right? Body and spatial awareness, all those things. So even if you're not playing 3 sports or different sports, working on things that improve your overall athleticism as opposed to just grinding on skill specific things, I think is massive and often overlooked. And it can be fun, right? Like if you do plyometrics and stuff like that, you can set them up in ways that's enjoyable, that guys have fun with. And so to me, it would be, look at things that you can spend X amount of time on that are actually going to provide more value for that allotted time. Like if you can spend 15 minutes doing plyometrics, that's not all day, right? But that's going to help you compound it over time, be a better athlete. So to me, I would encourage parents to focus on things that have a compounding effect on your overall athleticism, as opposed to just developing skill early on, right? Like skill to me is one thing, but you said it, Jeff, like power, height, all of those other things, you need those just as much as you need the skill specific things. And so I think sometimes people get hung up on just training, one specific area, and you lose maybe all of these other things that you need in order to be an athlete.
That's great stuff.
I told you he'd be good.
Hey, Matt, about my youngest son is 18 now. He's a baseball player in high school, but played all sports growing up. And we on the January 1st, his birthday, gosh, I don't know how many years ago, we gave him a framed Matt Ryan jersey that is up on his wall still. And I just want to tell you, thanks for being a great role model. He's always been a big fan. We've been a big fan. You've represented Atlanta well, and we just thank you for it.
Well, I appreciate that. That's pretty cool. We still got it up there, man.
Still got it up there.
I imagine, though, after the draft, there's a new one coming that he's going to put up.
We'll see.
Hopefully.
Hey,
Hopefully.
And a little advice pitching this year. Next practice with the kids, I'm coaching 5- and 6-year-old T-ball softball this year with my girl. We spent an hour and a half hitting the other night, and all the parents said, "We not working anything else?" I said, "I got to know where your daughter's swing is so I can hit their bat when I'm pitching."
Dude, last year I would do the same thing. Every time before, I'd be like, "Hey, give me 2 practice swings here."
Yep.
And it was for no other reason than to be like, where is this bat coming from?
Absolutely.
Kids chopping at it. I'd be throwing at their helmet, All you want to do with those little kids is get them a hit, because their reaction when they actually do it, there's nothing like it.
No, that's what I told all our girls' parents, man. I said, I just want your daughter to put the ball in play. If she hits it back to the pitcher and she's out, I'd rather have her do that than hit it off the tee.
I'll tell you the other thing that's been rewarding is, when you're at practice in baseball or in football at the professional level, you never really see improvement. We talk about getting 1% better all the time, but you can't see it, right? Like it's such a fine line. Getting back to young kids and seeing like
practice to
100%
practice
improvement from one practice to the next.
Yep.
It like makes you feel good again, because you're like, oh my God, like you can actually improve. Like this is, and you see them light up when they do it. That part to me has been really cool to see.
Yeah, you're gonna have a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a blast.
We thank you, man, and enjoy your trip, enjoy your downtime, and hopefully next time CBS has a Super Bowl, you're
that's right.
You're calling this one, because I look forward to it.
I hope so too, man. I hope so.
Thanks, bud. You're the best.
Thanks so much, Matt.
All right, guys. Appreciate you. Love what you guys are doing too, man. I see the clips all the time. I think it's so smart and so good to get it out there, because there's so many people who have this screwed up.
Yeah.
So many people who have this screwed up, and make it too hard on the kids too early, man.
Man, I had a dad come up to me, because I coached my daughter's 10-year-old travel softball team. And with baseball and softball here in Atlanta, you don't have to leave. Everybody comes here to play.
Yes.
But this dad came up and he said, I'm on a team that they're doing 11 tournaments, 9 out of the state. And he's like,
why?
Financial, exactly. And that's what I said. I said, exactly what you said. There'll come a time, sophomore, junior, senior, where you got to make a chance, though. If you know you have the opportunity, then go for it. But I also tell them by that point, just like you said, the kids will know what's at stake there, and they're either going to want to do it or not. At 10 years old, they don't know.
No, dude. At 10 years old, I only really wanted to play wiffle ball,
That-
like
right?
with my brother, right? Like that was more important to me than whatever. We'd lose the game. All right, let's go home and play wiffle ball.
Yeah,
Exactly.
or jump in the
Mel,
pool.
And that's, I told
Yeah.
these guys, we've done what, 65, 70 episodes, man. I've learned more through this, honestly, coaching my own kids and the way I coach. It's been, I still have to check myself sometimes. I told them I'll get going sometimes and Katie will be like, don't you do a podcast, Jeff? And I'm like, yep, I got you.
It's hard.
My bad. No one's perfect. No
All
one's
right,
perfect.
bud.
Hey, thank you so
Thanks,
much,
man.
Matt.
Have a good trip.
Appreciate you guys.
Take care,
Thanks,
Matt.
Matt.
Thank you.
Hey guys, Jeff Francoeur here. Thanks for checking out Pure Athlete and subscribe to our channel on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you go to listen to our podcast.